The lethality of their power is greater than ever. Their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. In earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
Hi, I'm Howard Nima of We Are Change Connecticut, and this is Truth Talk News. We have a special report and a special guest, Janet Phelan, investigative journalist, author of a new book called Exile, which is a little delayed due to some very, very important updates. Janet and I had this discussion the other day on Skype, and I recorded it, and of course she wants me to broadcast it. And it's important information regarding the new DNA targeting diseases for individuals to cure them. Well, we got a lot of information about this, and this is an important report. Please share it with everyone you know. Again, this is investigative journalist and author Janet Phelan. But it's unbelievable how much things have changed with regards to the bioweapons and targeting now with DNA, because the court said you can do it.
Yes, and one of the more interesting things that I found about this DNA stuff is that it's very difficult to create a race-specific bioweapon. What Wouter Basson was working on in South Africa, and I have interviewed a scientist who was working alongside Basson. Now, this guy, he was very nervous. He kept saying, "Well, I signed the State Secrets Act, blah blah blah." But so I found a different way to approach it, and I said to him, I think Basson was successful in creating this bioweapon. Do you? And he looked at me and he smiled. He goes, yes. I said, I think what he developed attaches onto the melanin, because people with darker skin have more melanin, attaches onto the melanin. Do you think that too? He smiles at me and goes, yes. Okay. Now, since the 70s, there has been a spiking in the increase of the silent killers of diabetes and hypertension in people with darker skin. In some communities, it's as high as 50% now, okay? Now, in other communities, well, if you look at the CDC figures, you'll be all confused because their figures are finessed. But if you look at people, first of all, like African Americans, their numbers have spiked.
Right.
If you look at people like here in Mexico, the indigenous Indian population here in Mexico, it's like there's an epidemic of diabetes and hypertension. So
that would make sense, though, since it's been the rise has come since the 70s when they started making these biospecific weapons, right?
Well,
race-specific bioweapons.
Well, I don't know how successful they've been in creating other race-specific weapons, but Basson was specifically trying to target something against people with darker skin. So people with darker skin, right around the time that Basson was wrapping up with Project Coast, all of a sudden, people with darker skin started coming down with diabetes and hypertension. So this is an indicator, people with darker skin have more melanin. So, the input about this appears to be at least circumstantially validated. Now, the issue that I find is really interesting here, upon researching this for the chapter in my book, which is called Exile, is that it is far easier to create an individual weapon against an individual, because the differences between individuals are far greater in general than the differences between groups. Now, one of the outstanding differences with darker skinned people is they have more melanin. But according to the research I've been doing, it's very difficult to make a race-specific bioweapon because the differences among groups are very tiny.
So that
the differences among individuals. So
right.
If somebody wanted to, target you, Howard, it would be far easier. Just, take a snip of your hair, you drink a glass, you leave your DNA behind on the rim of the glass. It would be easy as pie to create a weapon against you. But creating a weapon against a group is something that apparently, from the research I've done, is a bit more difficult. Although it looks like
Wow.
Bassan was successful out there in South Africa.
It's incredible, and certainly real. I'm just surprised because of all the talk right now going on about DNA. It's unbelievable.
Well, it's what I'm trying to do in terms of expanding this part of the book is to make it very believable, because it's something that people just, oh, the Human Genome Project, isn't that great? Now they can cure all our diseases. Well, the very same type of research that for gene therapy,
Can be
which
used
is
for gene murder.
can be used for gene murder.
Wow.
And my contentions in the book is that this is already happening. So, without giving away the whole sort of scenario there, I felt that it was important to expand the research. So this is what has kind of stalled me up a bit. It is.
And now these bioweapons that can be put to your DNA and the genome, like you said, the Human Genome Project. Wow, everything New World Order is the opposite. So if they say it's going to be able to help target disease, it's also going to be able to help target to give you a disease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you know where Michael Douglas went in England? What facility he went into?
I'll try to get some more research on that myself, but I remember when it happened. He went to again, this is my memory cells here, my memory banks. It was either England or Germany, to be precise. It was one or the other, and I think he said England, and for treatment, and that was about a year or so ago, year and a half ago, and then all of a sudden now it's gone. Fourth stage. No, it's all very easy to search. You can just go on the mainstream media and search Michael Douglas cancer, and there were plenty of TV reports that he was going for treatment. And miraculously, unlike most Americans that would have fourth stage throat cancer, he didn't die.
Yeah. Well, I guess these deals with the devil make one very safe in this dimension, don't they? See, this to me, I mean, whether or not this is true about Michael Douglas, and it certainly raises questions. For me, it kind of highlights how the powers that be are so successful in what they are doing to our country, to the planet, because basically they're promising people the kingdoms of this world. We will cure you. You will be rich. You will be famous. And just do what we tell you to do. And it's very seductive, particularly for somebody who's facing death by cancer, for example. We'll cure you. I mean, what a wonderful promise that would be. Just say these words. And I think that it's really so important that people really keep focusing on the fact that the kingdom of this world is not the only game in town. And in fact, it's a very transient and fleeting game.
Not only that, the kingdom of this world for Christians this is Satan's world. I mean, this is
exactly
if you're a Christian, yeah. So
exactly. Mm-hmm.
And it's really unbelievable that I lived 40 years of my life not aware of this, and my cousin, she passed away of colon cancer, and I remember when she had colon cancer, she was not taking chemotherapy and radiation, and she said it's poison, and everyone in the family, including myself, ridiculed her and said she's crazy, and what is she doing? The doctor said you'll be dead in 6 months. Well, guess what? She lived almost 4 years and did not have those poisons, which probably would have killed her in 6 or 8 months. But nobody understands this, even though the truth is out there. A World Without Cancer. I read that book by G. Edward Griffin. There's other books. There's other Murder by Injection. The cancer is a business. It's an investment business. It's a $200,000 to $300,000 treatment per patient, and that is profit. They can't give up the golden goose, even if they have the cure. They'll never give it out.
Yeah, it's very sad, that people are so driven by worldly possessions, money. It's just sad, but it's almost like I have this argument, this conversation with people from different religious traditions. I was talking to some Jehovah's Witnesses the other day, and they're saying, well, Satan is tempting people as Satan is, and frankly, there is within all of us the seeds of this sort of duplicity. I mean, everybody needs to make a living. We don't live on air, so and people's desire for a longer life, a better life, those in and of themselves are not bad things. So we do have within us the sort of psychological infrastructure which allows us to become corrupted. And really, when you look at what's happening to so many good people, people being put into prison on trumped up charges, set up, people being murdered, journalists being murdered in the U.S. Gary Webb comes to mind. I mean, the horror stories. I mean, one can understand how a person would not want a horror story to happen to them. And
Absolutely.
I think it really, so it is understandable, but I think, we have to kind of accept that within our own psychological infrastructure, we have the seeds of what it would take to become corrupted and used as a tool of the powers that be. And I think once we realize that, we know that we have a choice. And the choice, of course, is to say no.
Well, I've changed so much since I woke up. I used to have a completely different attitude towards money and what it means to be successful. And now I'm actually happy that I'm going to be selling my house and having resources so that I can prepare for the calamity that is fast approaching, that most just say, like Chris Matthews on MSNBC says, the crazies are at it again, saying the government's going to try to take away their guns and put in a one world government. I mean, and calling my organization, We Are Change, I'm We Are Change Connecticut, a co-founder, a hate group because we want constitutional freedom. In fact, on that very same report, he said that Americans for a Free Republic, Americans for a Free Republic, okay, is an anti-government hate group. Think about that. And the sheep are listening to that and saying, oh, that's right, Americans for a Free Republic, they're a hate group. I mean, the verbiage, Americans for a Free Republic, how is that a anti-government hate group? It just exposes how corrupt and controlled the mainstream media is by these oligarchs.
Welcome back to Harvard. The crazies are still on the rise. A study by the Southern Poverty Law Center finds that the number of anti-government patriot groups has exploded over the last 4 years. According to the study, these groups typically believe that the federal government is conspiring to take Americans' guns away from them and destroy their liberties as it paves the way for a global one-world government. Well, these are groups like the Constitution Party, We Are Change, Tyranny Response Team, and Americans for a Free Republic. And these anti-government patriot groups have skyrocketed
over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. In earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.